Google labels it a threat. Industry insiders call it a piracy paradise.
And some of the biggest tech companies in the world have spent years trying to stop it. Yet despite all that, this app store has generated over 1 billion downloads and built a loyal user base across the globe. Most people have never even heard of it. But what if I told you that this small company managed to challenge Google's control over Android, survive a direct attack from one of the most powerful corporations on Earth, and help change the future of mobile apps forever? Because this isn't just the story of an app store, it's the story of who controls your phone and why some of the biggest companies in tech are terrified of what came next. For most people, downloading an app is just a click. But have you ever wondered why you only have 2 choices? The Google Play Store and Apple's App Store aren't just stores. They are digital fortresses. They decide what lives and what dies on your phone, and they take a 30% cut of everything. Imagine a landlord taking 30% of your salary just because you walk through the front door. Most call this a monopoly. We call it normal. But in 2009, one man decided to find a crack in that fortress, and that man created Aptoide.
But before Aptoide could challenge the giants, its founder had to answer one dangerous question.
That man was Paulo Trezentos. He wasn't a billionaire. He was a PhD student with a radical idea. What if the App Store didn't belong to a corporation, but to the people? He built Aptoide, not as one store, but as thousands of independent stores connected together. It was the Wild West of apps. No gatekeepers, lower fees, total freedom. It sounded like a paradise for developers and users alike. But as Aptoide grew, it attracted a type of attention that Paulo wasn't prepared for. And it wasn't just from Google.
Freedom comes with a price. Without Google's strict filters, Aptoide became a playground for something darker: piracy, malware, apps that looked normal but were stealing data in the background. It earned a nickname, the Napster of app stores. Google saw its chance. They didn't just warn users, they started a campaign to bury Aptoide under a mount of fear. They thought they had won. They thought Aptoide would fade away, but they underestimated how far Paulo was willing to go to clear his name.
Aptoide didn't just fix the bugs. They built a security system that challenged the industry. They introduced trusted badges and anti-malware scanners that were in some ways faster than Google's. They weren't just an alternative anymore. They were becoming a legitimate threat. And that's when Google made a move that would eventually cost them billions. But what happened next wasn't just a business dispute. It was a betrayal that triggered a massive investigation. In 2014, Google's Play Protect started flagging Aptoide as dangerous malware, not because it was actually harmful, but because it was a competitor. Imagine your phone suddenly blocking an app you've used for years, screaming that your data is at risk. Millions of users fled in panic. Aptoide's traffic crashed by 20% overnight. It looked like the giants had finally crushed the rebel. But Paul had a secret weapon, a document that proved Google was abusing its power. And when he showed it to the European Union, the world stopped.
In July 2022, the European Commission dropped a bombshell that shook the tech world. After years of relentless investigation, they delivered an unequivocal verdict. Google had systematically abused its dominant position with Android, crushing fair competition. The fine wasn't just a number, it was a staggering 4.34 billion euros. To grasp its true scale, this single penalty was larger than the entire GDP of some small nations. It was a thunderous message from Europe. No company, not even Google, is above the law. This wasn't merely about a fine. It was about validating a fundamental principle. The EU demanded Google cease its anti-competitive tactics, specifically its aggressive blocking of alternative app stores. For Aptoide, this was ultimate vindication. They were no longer just a sketchy alternative. They were the unlikely David who had not only stood up to Goliath, but had actually wounded him. Suddenly, major players, Epic Games, Samsung, even Microsoft, started paying serious attention to the small Portuguese team. Aptoide had proven the impossible was, in fact, possible. But victory, especially against a titan like Google, often comes with a hidden cost. While Paulo and his team celebrated, Google was already crafting a new, far more insidious strategy to regain control. This time, they wouldn't use lawyers or fines. They would weaponize the one thing users fear most: threat to their digital safety. What happened next would push Aptoide to the very brink of extinction.
After the colossal EU fine, Google couldn't openly block Aptoide without risking further legal repercussions. So they pivoted. Their strategy shifted from direct confrontation to a subtle psychological war. They began embedding more and more security layers into Android, making installing any third-party app feel like navigating a treacherous minefield. Every time a user tried to update an app via Aptoide, Android would aggressively trigger alarming pop-ups. For your security, your phone is not allowed to install unknown apps from this source. It was a relentless campaign designed to instill fear and doubt. Tell a user something is dangerous 10 times, and eventually they will believe you. This wasn't about protecting users. It was about manipulating their perception of safety to maintain a monopoly. Despite this constant barrage of warnings, Aptoide continued its improbable growth. They defied expectations, hitting an astonishing 300 million active users globally, processing 10 billion downloads annually. In emerging markets like Brazil and vast regions of Southeast Asia, Aptoide wasn't just an alternative, it was rapidly becoming the primary gateway for millions to access the digital world. They were winning the battle for the streets, one user at a time, by filling a void Google had left open. But in the cutthroat world of tech, the higher you fly, the harder and more spectacular you can fall. In 2020, a single catastrophic mistake, originating from deep within Aptoide's own servers, handed Google the perfect, undeniable weapon to utterly destroy their hard-won reputation forever. This wasn't an external attack. It was a self-inflicted wound that brought them to their knees.
It happened in an instant, a digital catastrophe that sent shockwaves through the entire Aptoide ecosystem. A massive security breach exposed the personal data of over 20 million Aptoide users. This wasn't minor details. It was a treasure trove of sensitive information, emails, hashed passwords, unique device identifiers, and even IP addresses. All of it was unceremoniously dumped onto a well-known hacking forum, freely available for anyone with malicious intent to exploit. The timing couldn't have been more devastating. For years, Aptoide had fought tooth and nail to prove its legitimacy, to argue it was just as safe, if not safer, than Google's own Play Store. Now, their most vocal critics felt utterly vindicated. Headlines screamed betrayal and danger. Aptoide hack. Is your phone at risk? The danger of alternative stores revealed. The narrative Google had painstakingly built, that alternative stores were inherently unsafe, seemed to have been proven true. Google, of course, didn't stay silent. They seized the opportunity, using the breach to run massive, highly visible security awareness campaigns across Android devices. Their message was clear and chillingly effective. We told you so. Developers, terrified of being associated with a compromised platform, began pulling their apps in droves. Millions of users, feeling utterly betrayed and vulnerable, deleted Aptoide from their devices and rushed back to the perceived safety of the Google Play Store. The decade-long struggle for legitimacy seemed to have ended in a catastrophic, self-inflicted defeat. Paulo Trezentos and his team faced a brutal crossroads. They could close the company, admit defeat, and walk away from a decade of relentless effort.
Instead of hiding behind legal teams or issuing empty PR statements, Aptoide chose a path of radical transparency. They didn't just patch the holes, they invited the entire world to scrutinize them. They open-sourced their core security protocols, a move almost unheard of for a company recovering from such a devastating breach. This allowed independent researchers, white hat hackers, and even former critics to audit every line of their code, searching for vulnerabilities. They launched a massive bug bounty program, not just as a formality, but with substantial rewards, paying hackers thousands of dollars to find and report vulnerabilities before malicious actors could exploit them. They rebuilt their entire infrastructure from the ground up, implementing encryption levels and security architectures that rivaled and in some cases surpassed those of major financial institutions. It was a slow, painful, and incredibly expensive process, but it was a necessary investment in regaining trust. One user, one developer, one line of code at a time. Then the winds of change swept across the tech landscape. In 2024, the European Union, emboldened by its previous victory against Google, passed the landmark Digital Markets Act, DMA. This new, sweeping legislation officially forced tech giants like Apple and Google to open their long-guarded walled gardens. For the first time in history, Apple was legally mandated to allow alternative app stores on the iPhone, a move once deemed impossible by the company itself. This was the moment Aptoide had been fighting for since its inception in 2009. But as they prepared to finally enter the coveted iPhone market, they discovered one final, shocking secret about how big tech truly maintains its iron grip on your device, a secret that would expose the true nature of their control.
Aptoide's arduous journey from a small PhD project to a global challenger ultimately proves one undeniable truth. The security arguments so frequently deployed by Apple and Google were often nothing more than a carefully constructed smokescreen. When finally forced by law under the immense pressure of the DMA, they suddenly, almost miraculously, found ways to make alternative stores safe and interoperable,
It was never truly about your protection. It was, and always has been, about their colossal 30% commission. It was about who owns the digital gateway to your life, who controls the flow of information and commerce on the devices you paid for. Today, Aptoide stands as far more than just an alternative app store. It's a powerful symbol of digital sovereignty, a testament to the idea that even the most entrenched monopolies can be challenged. They showed that a small, determined team from Portugal could take on the most powerful tech giants in history and, against all odds, emerge victorious. They didn't just survive, they paved the way for a future where you, the user, finally have the power to decide which software runs on the device you own, free from the dictates of corporate gatekeepers. The walls of the digital gardens are finally, irrevocably coming down. But make no mistake, the fight for control is far from over. Every time you download an app, you are making a profound choice. Do you want a curated, controlled, and ultimately limited experience? Or do you want the freedom to explore, to innovate, and to truly own your digital life? The future of mobile is being written right now, and Aptoide played a crucial role in shaping its next chapter.